Hey everyone, what is up? This is Ete with another episode of The Company Next Door. Today, I say this every time, but I'm very excited because I'm sitting down with the founder of Trailtalk, which, if you follow the show, you'll know a few episodes back I sat down with Megan from Trailtalk, who's an affiliate in the Provo and Heber area. And today I'm actually sitting down with the founder, the creator of it. And I got a lot of questions. There's a lot that I want to kind of find out. And so anyway, we're here, and so I'm excited for this interview. And I'm here with Allison in her office. Allison, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Ete, for having me.
Oh, very excited to have you. As I've listened to some of the pieces that I've picked up from Megan, I've realized that I think on the business side of things, we have some similarities. So I'm hoping that you're going to solve all my problems with this episode today.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to happen. Yeah. Anything is possible, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? Who knows?
Okay. I'll still have a little bit of hope. So, but just a brief introduction. So Trailtalk is basically taking therapy off the couch and onto the trails. And, you know, most people, everyone at this point is familiar with the concept of therapy, of talking with counseling. And I talk with Megan a little more in the specifics of the CBT, the cognitive behavioral therapy. And we talked about the stigma of therapy in the industry overall. And so I love the company. I love the name, the branding. I see this and I see it could be something, well, it is something great. And I could see it as something, you know, potentially across the U.S., but I don't know if that's your vision. But we'll get there. Okay. So I got too far. So anyway, what I'd love to find out today is let's talk a little bit about let's dig into this Trailtalk. So Allison, you were in the nursing industry previously?
I'm a nurse.
You are a nurse?
Once a nurse,
okay.
Always a nurse.
Okay, you don't leave that?
I'm a nurse.
Okay,
yeah.
And were you in the mental health space?
No, actually, I got my 4-year nursing degree in 1980, and when I was a youngster, I wanted to be a midwife in the northern woods of Maine. I was a real hippie back in the 70s and just really loved to be outside and really wanted to bring babies into the world. And so I worked with a midwife and I'm like, that's what I want. I want to be a midwife in the northern woods of Maine. And then I also hadn't traveled much. I grew up in northern Maine, grew up in a pretty poor family. And I had the opportunity to travel and go anywhere as a nurse because in 1980 there was a nursing shortage. So I went to a job fair in Boston with a bunch of nursing students. We're in our senior year. We hadn't taken our boards. And back then it was in writing 3 days in a gymnasium, handwritten.
Oh, wow.
You didn't find out you passed your boards for 6 weeks. So we were in Boston and Primary Children's had a recruiter there. And I'm thinking, oh, that sounds pretty cool. I could travel across country. What's the worst that can happen? I don't like it and I come home. And I was in Maine. I thought, well, the only place I'd probably go is Boston, but Boston's a little too big. So I got recruited by Primary Children's. They're like, yeah, come on out to Utah. We'll pay for relocation. And it's like, yeah, game on. I took my boards. A few days later, I thought, I guess I'm just going to go, and if I pass my boards, great. If I don't, I'm going to go back home and I'll be a florist. You know, I was a, you know, looking at the glass always.
Seem like you're pretty open to.
I'm pretty optimistic, a little bit too much. I've got a little bit too much of a, I have vision and I'm a dreamer, and if that doesn't work, I try something else. So anyway, I got my little gremlin. It was yellow. I called it the rolling banana. That was my handle. And this awesome. Car, no maintenance. The minute I got the car, never. Oh, it needs oil. Oh, what, you know. So anyway, I made it out to Utah. Traveled around the country for several weeks. Got to Primary Children's and started work October 6th, 1980. And they put me into newborn ICU. And I'm like, wow. Newborn ICU? And then that was the first time I saw that babies aren't big and fat and pink. And it's like, I'm not going to go back to Maine and be a midwife of the northern woods of Maine. And that's when I realized that I really, really liked community health, that I really wanted to be in the community. And I started moving towards that. And then 2 years at the hospital, I moved into cardiopulmonary lab and was working with a cardiologist developing exercise protocol for kids post-cardiac surgery. And then during that time, money came available through the federal government to encourage nurses to go back and get their advanced degrees in nursing. So I did that. And in 83, I started grad school, 85. And got out in 87 as a pediatric nurse practitioner. Wow. And then I went into the community and realized that I loved community health care, public health. And then I really found my passion was in program development. So my nursing career has been incredible. Every job I've had, though, I've created it. I kind of came up. And that's the thing with moving to Utah. I couldn't do the same things back east, but coming to Utah back in the 80s, it was like, it was a new frontier.
As growing up, I'm also from the East Coast, and then coming across the country, it's such a different experience.
Oh.
What was your impression when you got here? Were you just looking around like, what are these big, tall things covered in snow?
No, I was like, why didn't someone tell me there was sun every day?
That's how I felt.
I mean, it was like...
I felt cheated.
I know. It's like, people actually live with sun.
Yeah.
And so when I came out here, and then the thing that really got me was I was in this house that Primary Children's let me live in for a month, and I left a sofa outside that was a fabric, like it had fabric, and then... And when I woke up in the morning, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to be ruined because of the humidity. And I came out and I touched it, and it was dry. And I was like, oh my, it's dry. So the humidity and then mosquitoes. I'm telling you, this is the universal sign in Maine after 6 o'clock. It's like you just have to,
just
and then
constantly swat. Yeah.
And so it's like, there's no mosquitoes, there's no humidity, and there's sun every day. I forgot to go home.
What's funny is I'm the same way 100%. I actually meet people who say, oh, I love humidity or that. I'm like, there's no, like, I love the East Coast. Yeah. My heart will always be there, and I go every year mostly. But those three things, no thank you. Done.
Yeah. And I love the woods, but I like the vastness. Yeah. I like to be up and look in it. And I do love, like when I'm mountain biking, I love some of the trails that I'm deep into the forest. It just feels like home. Yeah. And it's like, this brings me back to Maine. Sure. And then when it's an inclement day, it's like, oh my gosh, bring it on, a thunderstorm.
Yeah, I do miss rain.
I do, and I love inclement weather because it reminds me of home. Yeah. And I get to stay inside, because when I first got here, it was like, when does it rain? And it never rains. It's like, I have to be outside. I had to be outside, and I still am like, I have to be outside. Yeah. And so I never got anything done for first 10 years I lived here. It's like, I'm outside. You got to stay home. I can't. It's another sunny day. I'm making up for lost time.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So yeah, you end up in Utah. You've got the nursing, and now you said you like to do, sorry, I can't remember the word. You didn't say systems, but it was organizational.
Oh, program development.
Program development, which it sounds like all these things are kind of preparing you for what you eventually go on to build. Yeah. In some ways, in some odd ways. So how do you get there from there to how did you start Trailtalk?
Yeah. So I've actually done a fair amount of introspection and therapy and looking back of like, how did I get here? And when I was a teenager, I really didn't understand why people stopped playing. Because it was like, okay, when you turn 18, you stop playing. I don't get it. So I would just, and in Jersey and Maine, it's like everybody would like, let's come over to the house and have dinner and sit down and do nothing. Yeah. It's all like, night. Okay, I can't do this. It's like, why aren't we playing? Yeah. And so I started writing papers about it in high school. So it was about, why do people stop playing? And then I go into college. And I started getting involved when I was a first year in nursing. I had a work study job, and it was working with a cardiac rehab. And it was getting people that hadn't been active, who had cardiac surgery, to walk. Yeah. And so I was this young nurse taking their blood pressure. So I started this journey of mental or physical wellness as a young nurse. And it also involved, we've got to move our bodies, you know? And so it started then. And then I'm like a big time dreamer, and I have ideas, and it's like, my mother would say, oh, here comes another one of Allison's ideas. And most of the time, everybody's like, nobody listened to me. Yeah. But then when I moved to Utah and I went back to grad school, I did my thesis on on childhood obesity. That was my focus because I had a sister who was morbidly obese, didn't play, didn't move, because we were too busy sitting around talking and doing nothing. And so my thesis was about a I've got the thesis right there, multidimensional weight management program. And so I worked with a friend who was a dietitian, and we created something called Family Food Fitness. And it's a program that still exists at Primary Children's.
Oh, cool.
And I spent during my thesis, I realized 98% failure rate because it had nothing to do with just eating. It was some psychological issues behind the scenes. And there was coalitions with mom and a child. And so that's when I started thinking, I was like, wow, this is the psychosocial dynamics of families really started to intrigue me.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I moved into after that, I started the Homeless Children's Health Promotion Program. I recognized that homeless kids weren't being cared for. I was volunteering at the homeless shelters. Like, I'm going to see if I can get some money and start a program. And then I applied for a grant. So again, this program development stuff, it's like I had an idea, I got a dream.
Yeah.
Well, what started happening with that is people like, that's a great idea. And I'm like, what? Someone actually is going to listen to my idea?
Yeah, not just dismissing him.
Here's
Here's another Allison idea.
It wasn't just, and this Allison idea was a good one. And so then I started working at the homeless shelter, spent 8 years developing this program, wrote some articles for national journals. Then I ended up getting married, having children, taking care of sick parents at some point in my life. And anyway, again, life happened and I had to transition. And then time goes on. I had a sick daughter for a while. She ended up at the hospital, so I ended up being a parent for a year instead of a nurse. Living in the motorhome outside while she was sick. But she recovered. 10 surgeries later, 10 years. She's a whippersnapper of a young woman involved in public policy. And so anyway, when my kids were probably juniors and seniors in high school, I was like, they're going to be graduating and I'm going to be an empty nester. I got to do something because I took 11 years out of the workforce because Julia was sick. Gotcha. And I had to, it worked much better for the family for me to be home and care for her and the kids. Kept very busy during that time. I do a lot of nonprofit work awesome. For no pay, but it was a great segment of my life. So when they were in high school, I thought, I want to be a therapist. And someone had said they were going to be a therapist. It's like, I've always wanted to do therapy or look at the psychosocial dynamics of the family. It's like, I'm going to go to grad school. So I went back in and I decided to go into the nurse practitioner program and get, they call it a post-master's certificate because you can't get 2 masters from the same university. It's some kind of legal thing. But the second time around was so much harder. Wow. Because when you're 23, you think you know everything. You're just like, I just like, what? The sky's the limit. Here I'm in my late 50s and my son's like, boy, Mom, this is going to be hard for an older learner. And I was kind of insulted. I'm like, and then I realized he's right because I know what I don't know. Yeah. So the second time around, it was intensely important to me, but oh man, it was very, very wonderful. So they go off to college and my last semester in graduate school, I was so stressed out. And here I am in therapy, doing therapy, trying to teach and talk to people about self-care, and I'm a wreck. I've never been more stressed out since my daughter was ill, and and so I went out for a walk and in the snow with my dog. I had snowshoes and I'm walking, and then all of a sudden I reach a point and I look out and look at this beautiful vista in the neighborhood I was in, and I'm like, oh, this is so cathartic. This is where I find peace. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. I'm going to do this with my clients. So I snowshoed home real fast. I got on the internet and I put in walk and talk therapy. This was back in 2009. Okay. 2008, something like that, right around there. And I found this guy in New York, and he was walking and talking in Central Park, and I called him up. I said, I got to talk to you. I want to do this. And so we had the great conversation. He says, oh, it's excellent. lost 50 pounds since I started. My wife's happy as a clam, and I'm having a blast. And so I just kind of asked him some questions. And at the time, I was thinking I'd call it, I really like Robert Frost and his poetry. I was going to call it Walk in the Woods. And then it's like, well, that doesn't quite work. And I swear I woke up one morning and said, it's Trail Talk. And then I just started trademarking it.
Wow.
And I thought, I'm going to be a therapist. I'm going to do walk and talk, and I'm going to bring therapy outdoors.
So yeah, you not only did you become the therapist, but you got into business.
Yeah.
Now you're out there, an entrepreneur in your 50s.
Yeah.
Building a company. Now, so let me ask you this, because Megan had also mentioned in the interview that you were a visionary. She goes, "Oh, she's a dreamer," and Megan says, "I'm more of I like to get it done."
Yeah,
you know?
she's an administrator.
Yeah,
she's like task oriented.
And so I can relate because I'm the same way. I have so many things going on in so many different directions, and sometimes my wife is like, just another. It's hard.
Another one of your great ideas.
Yeah. So it's hard sometimes. What was that like for you? Because people do look at you sometimes like, dude, just focus on one thing, or did you have to deal with a lot of like people kind of, because you mentioned earlier, this idea that why do we stop playing, or you could replace the word playing with dreaming, or
yeah, absolutely.
So what was that like for you, always having these ideas and then people around you were just saying, eh?
Wow, I got to tell you this kind of a funny story with having people say, I had a lot of friends and people say, we gotta pull you off that cloud and get into reality. You always have the cart before the horse. And so there was a situation where I was working with this group of teenagers. It was through a local church, and we had a great idea. We're going to go to Africa, and we're going to do a mission trip, and we're going to raise all our money. We're not going to write letters to people and say, give us money and trade money, and I'll send your kid on a trip if you pay. It's like, no, let's make money. Let's make our money, and we'll all have money, and we'll buy plane tickets, go to Cape Town, go to Johannesburg. We're going to nail it. Well, I tell the parents this, and they're like, what is she talking about? So I had five seniors in high school or juniors, and we're like, we're going to do it. And so I was going to do this. I'm crafty. I like to make things, I'm kind of a ad lib kind of artist, but I have fun doing it. And so it's like, we're going to have a big craft fair, Christmas time craft fair. And so it's like, and we're going to make, we gotta make $3,000. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And so then I had a mother who happened to be an IT person, numbers person. She says, well, in order for you to make $3,000, you're going to have this many pieces. And I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. I've got to we're just going to put it out there, and we're going to go for it. And I just couldn't do that part of it because that's not how I think.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, let's just get the energy going. And people will donate. They'll buy something and say, we have a $50 price tag, but maybe they'll give us $200. Well, it turns out we made $3,000. But that mother was so stressed out because she didn't, I just thought differently, and she, and if I would have listened to her, I would have said, oh, you're right. There's no way we're going to do it. Just end of story, And so I've had to really learn how to get the cart behind the horse, but it's taken me a long time to figure out how to use both sides of my brain at the same time. So how do I maintain my dreamer, be the visionary, but then, okay, now we got to talk numbers. And that's been the hard part for me, is I've got great ideas, but now I'm in charge of the purse strings, and I've got to really be cognizant of how I budget. So that's been really challenging.
Do you enjoy, because there's I forget who said it, but there's the why person and the how person, right? And you're the why, right? Here's the vision, here's why. Somebody else can come in, like Megan says, she's more of the how person. Take the vision. Yeah. Do you enjoy the how side of it? Do you enjoy being in the weeds and the physical parts of it?
Well, that has been something as a small business owner that I've had to learn. And so at the beginning, I really had to seek out wise counsel. I had to find people, and I had a lot of friends that were, venture capitalists and people that were in business. But I just felt like, I got to talk to you. And all I wanted to talk about was Trail Talk. And everybody loved it. But after a while, it's like, can you just kind of stop it? And it's like, I can't. I'm just so passionate. Yeah. So then I had to seek out some true business mentors that didn't know me but could give me some counsel. And I had this one business mentor say, okay, here's the deal. You've got to think about you've got to use your left brain, and don't be afraid of money. Don't be afraid of talking about money, but it's a new language and you're going to have to learn to speak it. Maybe not fluently, but at least you're going to have some literacy in the area of finance and other areas.
You need to know enough to make good decisions for the company.
And know how to surround myself with the right people.
Yeah. The human psyche, the brain, you've spent a lot of time analyzing, studying. Why do you think you're that way? Why am I that way? Is there a difference between me and the other person? Why can't I just chill? Why am I always, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a scientific thing behind that?
Yeah, there is. We all have a genetic signature, right? So that you have half of your mom's cake recipe, half of your dad's cake recipe. That's your genetic makeup, your genetic blueprint, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. And then you have siblings. Do you have siblings?
I got 5.
Yeah. So you have the similar or same genetic signature, very different life events. So you were different grades. So you had different coaches speaking into your life, different teachers, different time in your parents' relationship and their journey themselves, is how much energy they had to parent you depending on where you were in your birth order, right? So you have genetic signature and then you have life events. That's called nature nurture, right? You can look at it like that. But your genes are expressed based on your life events. So you have 5 kids in the family, and every
all different.
Okay. And they have very different life events. Well, if there's a traumatic life event in one of your siblings, and trauma can be a lot of things, bullying, there's all kinds of different types of negative life events, right? So some negative life events in certain stages of development, like junior high, high school, into college, those genes become expressed. So your gene expression happens in some family members, but not others. So it's like, why is Johnny like this and I'm like that? The other reason why is every single person has a temperament, and your temperament is set in utero. A lot of times people say anxious mommy makes an anxious baby. And then again, your parents and their ability to create a secure base for you, depending on where they were with their work and how involved they were, and siblings taking care of siblings. But temperament. So I have a very different temperament than my sisters, just different kind of people.
Sure.
I was, and so when you have babies, it's like some babies are hard to warm up. They're just not easy to snuggle. Yeah. Others are just easy babies.
Sure, yeah.
That's temperament.
Gotcha.
And then that temperament can be, and then over time, you develop your schema. And people speak into your life. So you make decisions at age 5, like, well, I guess I get a lot of love because I do it like this. And
Sure.
so we everybody wants to be loved, especially by our primary care providers, right? And so that's how we develop our schema over time. So nature, nurture, genetic signature, life events. Some people's life events will express certain genes. So that's why someone in the family may be like, why are they so different than me?
Yeah.
Get what I mean?
Yeah.
But temperament.
Yeah.
You were born with a certain temperament, and it was nourished, and it was encouraged, and nobody busted your bubble. You know what I mean? It's
there's a book. I don't know. Have you ever heard of this book called Unthink? I can't remember the author, but the principle of the book was kind of what you're saying. Why do we stop playing? He believes that we're all born as these creative individuals as kids, right? You watch your kids, and you give them a straw, and they're good for 3 hours. They're making up stuff, and then the life just kind of gets into them and beats them down, and we lose that creativity. Mm-hmm. And his belief is if we could get it back, we'd be more whole, we'd be more fulfilled, and life would be better all around.
Yeah, it's the age that I love the most is the age of innocence. The 3, 4, 5-year-olds, before they get on the bus, when they get on the bus and they learn potty talk and they learn everything, it's like end of innocence. So it's sort of like when they start getting tainted and start looking at their culture and the society around them and the judgment and that you're not okay the way you are, but again, every family system. So that's why in Trailtalk, I really push family systems. You could do individual therapy, but boy, it's really, you can't take someone out of a family system, fix them, put them back in. It's really family system. So if you think about you growing up in New Jersey and why you are like you are now, your creativity and your ability to be who you are was being encouraged and nurtured. And then other times it's like, like I call my daughter whippersnapper, there are some kids that start questioning at a young age, and that's just their temperament, their curiosity, their level of intelligence. Like, I'm not buying this. I don't. This is wrong. What the teacher's teaching me. I want to question. Some kids are very curious, and if that's nurtured, then they're going to have a voice. If not, they stop using their voice. They stop trusting their intuitive self. And I give this example of when I talk about intuition, your gut feeling, I give an example. So my son one day, I'm working at the shelter. I'm heading downtown. I've got a big job going on, and I got 2 toddlers. And my 4-year-old says to, I'm saying, okay, hurry up, finish breakfast, grab your backpacks, we gotta go, be in the car. And my son turns to me and said, "Are you angry?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not angry. Just get your stuff done. We got to get out of here." And you know what he says? He says, "It feels like you're angry." And so I turned to him and said, "You know what? You're right. I'm sorry. I'm rushing.
Yeah.
But you are feeling the right thing. But if you don't validate, that kid's like, okay, well, it feels like it, but she says not. I guess I have to believe her words." And then we stop trusting our intuitive self. Get what I mean? That validation?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we start losing that creativity.
Like I can't trust that what I am going to do is going to be accepted. And I don't know if I dare. And then we start fearing failure, judgment, So a lot of people just squelch their creative self because it's not that good.
Yeah.
I mean, I've put out stuff and I've had people say, boy, I have this Trailtalk book, and I did it as I love to take photographs. I know that I
saw it.
It's pretty,
like Park City, on the trails, images.
It's a walking meditation.
Yeah.
And so I understand lighting. That's about all. I have no interest in getting in a dark room. So it's give me a camera. I know lighting. That's all I know. So I've taken a lot of great shots. So I'm thinking, I'm going to put together this book, and it's going to be part of my marketing. And so I met with this marketing guy, and he's like, "Yeah, I think you need to hire someone that can really take photographs. These are not very good photographs." I'm not kidding you. And I'm like, "Oh, they're not? I just got told by a marketing guy that these are not. Hire someone." And then I'm like, well, that's the whole point, is that it's my I'm kind of combining what I love. It's sort of like a bucket list kind of thing. And so, but after he said that to me, telling you, it's like he put a needle into my balloon, and I couldn't do anything for about 3 months. For 3 months, I believed him, and then after that, I thought, "Oh, screw that.
Yeah,
I'm resurrecting this. He's wrong." But I believe what people tell me at first, and then it takes me some time to say, "No, get your mojo back. You can do this. Challenge it. What's the worst that can happen? It fails."
Right.
And
you're right. We need that validation internally. A lot of us, but also you need some amount of externally, especially when it comes to building a company like Trailtalk, because you need to make sure it's good.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you didn't call it, what was it, a walk in the woods?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I've told I'm like an advocate for Trailtalk, and I've told many people about it. And within 5 seconds, it's funny. Everyone says, "Oh, that's fantastic."
Yeah.
And I think the name, everything's great. So let's talk about building this company. So you have this vision, and all the pieces of your experience are starting to come together, and you're going, "Okay, this is what I'm going to do." And you call this guy in New York, and you're not afraid to do things. It sounds
no, I'm not. I really am not.
I love that. That would stop a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you call him, and you're getting some ideas.
Yeah. I called him up. I said, "I love this," and I said, "Would you come to Utah? Let's do a project together."
Yeah.
And then I'm like, "Okay, what's my next step?" Well, I got to get some money. And then I'm like, being in the nonprofit world, I thought about grants. What could I do? And then remember the Goldman Sachs program that helps entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
I applied for them twice. I got rejected twice. It wasn't big enough, but and then I went to someone else, and I just kept pounding the pavement. I'm old fashioned. I'll go talk to people. I grew up in the medical community, so it's like pharmaceutical reps. What do? They go to offices. They walk in. They give them the cars. They sell and I tell you, I can sell turnips to turnip truck drivers. That's an old Maine saying. Because when I'm passionate about something,
it just
it's
shows.
like, oh my gosh, I can't stop.
Yeah.
And so I thought, gosh, I missed my calling. I could have been in sales,
It's
But
just way better.
yeah, and I love nursing. I love nursing, but I've kind of taken nursing in a different direction, and it's
Sure.
been in the community, and then I moved into mental health.
What was the original vision? Because I know now, like you said, you've got. Well, we'll talk about that later. The company's spreading.
Mm-hmm.
But what was did you have like a picture when you were starting? Trail Talk is going to be just me, or what was the original vision?
Oh, so I'm thinking, because again, I got a million ideas,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, I think this one's a good one. This is a really good one. This might be brilliant. But I'm a little hummus, like, oh, be careful, you get a lot of these ideas. And then I thought, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. This is play. This is going to be combining my vocation with, and so I have this tagline where it's nursing theory meets wilderness therapy. So I had this idea that I'm going to align myself with the wilderness therapy community, and being nursing oriented, evidence-based, is like, I've got to show that we can take these wilderness therapy treatment modalities that are mostly saved for kids that are in wilderness therapy,
Sure.
and bring them into mainstream private practice. So then
Yeah.
I'm like, we got to collect we got to do research, we got to have outcomes data. So I started down that road, and I'm, again, vision, can I do it? No. I have to have someone help me with that kind of
Sure.
stuff. But my idea was, I'm gonna trademark this. And then I found this attorney and business person out of New York, and they wrote this book called The Bodyguard, and it was telling me, you got to start trademarking, grab a hold of IP, you got to develop this, you got to do this. And so I started listening to them and doing it
Step by
and
step.
just kind of. And then I thought, I think a national franchise would be so cool. Then I can share in the fun. Why not make this available, because I think this is going to be a great opportunity. So as I started this, I wrote on the bottom of my website, franchise opportunities, and
No clue
nothing.
what that looks like. Okay.
Well, I thought I understand that a franchise means you just make it grow. That's awesome. And then I started reading about franchise. I've read every book.
I've
read every book.
Okay, they're pretty
nail it to you,
complicated,
nail
yeah.
it to you, scale it, the E factor. You name every book.
Awesome.
I've read it. It's the same word. It's like a diet book. It's the same information, different nomenclature, different way to package it. And some things would click. Fail fast. It's like, I don't want to listen to you. I'm not going to fail fast.
Yeah. I remember that book. Yeah.
So I put that down, and that's when Megan actually. So franchise opportunities, and then when you clicked on it, it had call Allison at this number. That's when Megan called me.
Okay, so you have to tell the story, because
You
haven't
I got
heard
a different
it.
story.
You haven't heard. So I've interviewed Megan, but no one's heard it yet. Anyway.
Yeah.
And so, but we talked about this.
Yeah.
And Megan says there is her version and there's your version.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I want to hear your version.
Yeah, she's wrong. Although I never
go,
say
Megan.
that, because Megan is always right. I challenge her, but that's the struggle I've had as a business owner. Sometimes I forget to take off my mother cap or my nice nurse cap and put on businesswoman. Just the facts. I can be too nice. And I'll take the fall. I always take the fall. And so I've had a business mentor say it, Allison, you can't have everybody benefit from your risk taking. They have to take risks. So anyway, when Megan called me, I was busy, and I'm thinking, people call and say stuff, but she was like, my husband and I want to come out. I saw your website. I want to open a trailhead. We're going to move out of New Jersey and Baltimore, coming west. And I'm like, okay. And then she calls me this next day or week. She says, we got tickets. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? She's coming out. They're coming out for a ski vacation. And I wanted to make sure. Now, you're actually coming on vacation. This isn't all about me. I just want to make sure that I wasn't like leading her on. So when she showed up, we talked, and she probably told you that I made her go over to this play park, and we climbed up on this.
She didn't no, she just said we met at a park.
Oh no! So again, I'm about play, and I'm like, what do I have to lose? If I'm going to pretend she's my client, and so we climb up on this jungle gym, and it's all rope. It's like Swiss Family Robinson. And I said, "Are you any good at climbing up ropes?" And she says, "Yeah." I said, "Well, let's go on the top of this." Playground, because it's really cool, and then you get to see the mountains. And so I interviewed her up on this place. There's a park here, and it's got a really cool thing that you climb up. And I said, I will hire you, and we're going to have to try to replicate the system. So you're coming in at a time where I need to show that this is a repeatable, sustainable, low entry type of a business, and you're going to have to help me build that. And so we're going to have to build systems. And I knew about developing protocols and processes, and it had to be driven by systems. I said, so let's do it together. And so she came out and then worked for me, and she waited tables at the same time, and she and her husband were trying to make it work. And and we started replicating it. She started developing her own therapy style. And then in 2016, I went to Spain to walk the El Camino with my adult children.
That's awesome.
But I had a DNF. DNF in the world of skiing is called did not finish. Because 3 days into it, I ended up in cardiac ICU in Pamplona with a pericarditis, and I had 2 liters. And anybody that listening to this, I'm not kidding. It was 2 liters of fluid. It's called a cardiac tamponade. Fluid built up around my heart, and my kids are Spanish speaking. And so, we were, long story short, I was in Spain for a month, sick as a dog. Megan was running the ship. And when I got back, Megan's like, I want to launch my own Trailtalk. It's like, okay, well, first I have to have surgery, and I'm sinking. I had two quarters. I made no money, but I have great clients, and they just, it just turned out so well. And so Megan launched Provo and said, okay, let's replicate this. And then the journey continues.
So your knowledge base just comes from, you read a lot, you study a lot, but you had never built a company, let alone a pseudo franchise. Are you officially a franchise?
No.
Okay.
What I set out to do. So when I came back from Spain, I was very sick, and I had an attorney that kept saying, "Do a franchise, do a franchise." It's like, one, I don't know. I got to show proof of concept, and that's what we're doing now. Right now, all of our business, they're doing business as Trailtalk, and it's proof of concept. So I have a franchise attorney, small business attorney, both. She does both. And then I have an IP attorney. And so between the two of them, we're starting to look like a franchise, and we're going to be moving in that direction.
Gotcha.
Or we got to change our structure somehow, because there's all kinds of ways you can do it.
Yeah.
So as far as growth goes, I have peers saying, you're a little old to be able to benefit from a franchise as far as money down the road.
Sure.
And I'm like, well, there's other options. So before COVID, my game plan was end of 2020, evaluate the company, consider selling shares of the parent company, which I own 100% of Trailtalk. And then the Trailheads, it's like a 90-10 partial ownership, and they do business as. So these proof of concepts have proven that it is a repeatable, sustainable, low entry kind of do therapy, have a team of support, and a trusted brand that's starting to grow in.
So as you move into that, as you kind of head that direction, you just mentioned, the support, which is that's a hard part, because you've got, not only are you finding the people, I guess my question is, how do you find the people, and what is the support? What kind of support are you offering?
To trailhead owners?
To trailhead owners.
Oh, okay.
And this is more as, just looking into the model.
Yeah. So when I first started out, I thought, okay, I've got 2 customers. One are people that are going to come see us as clients.
Yep.
So I have to market to clients. So my website, and this was the journey that took me some time to say, how do I market to 2 different clients? One client are going to fill the seats, and you're going to be a client of Trailtalk. So you're going to see Megan for therapy and walk and talk. So we got these signature walk and talk. So we got to build that product with a client base. The other clients are potential owners of trailheads. And that's where it's like, that's where I was struggling, is how do I market to both at the same time? And so marketing, then I started figuring out, sometimes the light bulb goes on at certain times, and that awareness is like, yes, that's what I'm going to try. And so the whole idea is, if you want to own an affiliate, and I call them affiliates because I've also studied all kinds of franchises and affiliates. So there's Pure Barre is a exercise company, and it's a franchise, but it's a tight brand, and but you have to have a lot of money to come to the table to open up your facility. But I really started studying what's a really good franchise and what's an affiliate. So I started copying. It's like, well, what I want to do is I want to have a training, and you're going to come in, and it's everything you need to know to be a small business owner using nature as your therapeutic milieu. And so that's the training. And then I'm going to maintain a website, and the website is going to be the fulcrum. And that's where I'm going to maintain brand integrity at one website. And then all the trailheads are going to have locations off that.
Sure.
So I own that website, and that's part of what I get royalties or percentages, because I maintain the website. I do all the online social media marketing. I'm 24/7 available to help people with leadership, finance, marketing, and client services.
Do you have a limit on that? So you say 24/7
Sky.
available to help people. I mean,
The sky,
but that could take
right,
all of
is
your
the
time.
limit.
If you have 10 trailhead affiliates, you know, and they're all calling you 20 times a day, is that taking up your time?
Well, I'm telling you, that's.
You've built a good enough system.
Didn't you want to ask me what isn't working?
I am asking because we're like, so real quick, I'm in Eco Lawn's my company.
Yeah.
I own the whole brand.
Yeah.
I have partners in different areas.
Yeah.
They are equity partners, and
Yeah.
I get royalties.
Yeah.
I own and run the main website. I mean, this is my same story.
Oh.
But I have come to find that sometimes my unlimited support is exhausting me.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, you haven't,
So this is where COVID came in and threw me off. It hit the pause button, and it's like, okay, Allison, we got to regroup here, because again, as I've worked with some business mentors, read every single book that exists, it's about you've got to work on your company, not in your company.
Sure.
And I was really working at decreasing the amount of work I was doing in my company, but I love what I do. So it's really hard.
Yeah.
I love the program developments. I could spend the whole day doing this kind of stuff. I love this. Yeah. But then I have a whole day where I'm actually doing therapy, and it's like, oh gosh, this just floats my boat. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, so I have several things that I really like to do. In order for me to continue on this trajectory, I got to figure out how to be working on my business. And like this morning, it's like, okay, I got to get really good at talking to the attorney, talk to the marketing people, and then gotta go see clients, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm juggling it.
Yeah.
I'm juggling it. So no, it's not sustainable for long, because I'm getting weary.
but what you're doing is every time you come across you realize, hey, this is like, that's where I'm at. Like, okay, this year we brought on some new branches, and they're doing well, but it's taking a lot more energy than I originally.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, okay, what can I do for the next few branches? Just trying to get smarter, trying to bring back the data and make better decisions.
And surrounding yourself with really wonderful people. I have this IP attorney. I've never met her in person. She's living in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, but she is so good. She's the best writer I've ever seen. She understands Trailtalk, and she's not cheap, but she really believes in my brand. And I know that I've got a cheerleader. And then my franchise attorney, my accountant, she's like, it's like, Amber, tell me the truth. You took over from my last accountant, and she just loved me, but she just retired, and she's going to be fine. But I want to retire too. Is this business model worth buying? And when I evaluate it at the end of the year, look at the numbers as they are now. What is it saying? Because everybody said, "Oh, you're doing fine." I said, "But I want to hear from a CPA." And she's like, "Allison, it's a brilliant business model. Because you're scaling it and you're getting passive income, the numbers say one thing, but with the understanding of what you've got behind it with your IP and how you're selling these partial ownership contracts and getting passive income," she says, keep it going. You're doing great.
That has to be so validating for you, who's always had these ideas, and some of them you're going, people are like, oh, here she goes. And now you've got someone who's an expert saying, this is good.
Yeah. And it's like, you don't know me, and it's like, I'm going to pay you anyway, so tell me the truth.
Right.
And like today, I get this call from someone in the banking industry, and I'm like, oh, great. It's Dana. And I'm thinking, what is she going to tell me? It's probably going to be something to do with, I got to pay someone something. And she called me up and she just said, hey, I saw you go by in the van. And I just want to thank you because right now people are really needing mental health there. And so it's like, Dana, that I needed that. So sometimes I just need a little encouragement to say, go for it.
Yeah.
And I'll go for it, For
the affiliates, you maintain percentage of the equity? Or do you own all the equity, you just get the royalties, or is it a little bit of both?
Well, the structure is I own Trailtalk LLC. Yeah. So Trailtalk is mine, and under it's like the umbrella of the parent company. And underneath, they're partial ownership, pass-through LLCs. And they own 90%, I own 10%.
Gotcha.
And then the IP is I got an operating agreement, an IP agreement, and it's an exhibit, and it's pretty complicated, but the accountants, the bookkeepers, and the attorneys all are speaking the same language and are understanding it. So that's my passive income. And so as I'm aging, I knew that I had to scale this somehow. And so you scale a service industry, you can only make as much money as the number of people you can see. So if you're in private practice, if you can see 5 people a day, 10 people a day, that's it. So you're going to have to increase the number of people or increase your prices. Or you can scale it by hiring other therapists. Or you can create other streams of passive income. So a lot of therapists will become trainers, and they'll be mentors, and they'll be educators in some form or fashion within our industry. So there's all kinds of different ways you can wear a few different hats as a private business owner. So my idea with Trail Talk was, let's use nature as our therapy office, low cost.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm totally into the van, and I've had a hard time getting everybody else to buy the van. I think, but the woman in Aspen just said, I thought that van idea was kind of silly. She said, but right now I think it's brilliant. It's like, well, it is brilliant, but nobody's, again, it was an idea that people are like, I just don't want to pay the money. Again, risk analysis. And I tend to I'll risk.
Are you okay if, do you have that set in standard? You have to have a van?
No, okay. I had a business mentor tell me, you're barking up the wrong tree. Get rid of the people that aren't going to buy into this. And it's like, there's therapists, and they're very well educated. They're not necessarily all trust funders. So I got to be then I thought, I got to be realistic about this. And I love the van, and I think I want it part of my franchise model. It has to be an add-on based on how much, if I say this is a repeatable, sustainable, low-cost entry point, I think the van has to be something that is a choice. At first, I was going to be like, no, within 2 years, you have to own it. And if you're in a ski town, it better be Mercedes. If you're in Iowa, you could do a Dodge Ram.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because you got to kind of work with the clientele. So I've kind of softened up on that. And I got 2 camps of people. You're crazy. Make that the model. It's like, well, then it's sort of like, do I stay with self-pay during the COVID, or do I add insurance?
Yeah.
I had to decide. My gut feeling is like, who am I? And I got to make that decision myself.
Gotcha.
So I think the van is, I bought, it's a used van. I got a smoking deal on it back when I bought it. And it's paid for itself. It's a roving billboard. Right now, it's an office inside.
It's
great.
Sweet. No, I actually think it's very clever. I've used it rainy days. I use it in the winter a few times. Get a little heater in it.
So the other thing about the this roving billboard is it's destigmatizing emotional care for active functional folks. And so my whole gig was around, we've got to open the doors of the traditional therapy office and shed light on the shame and stigma of emotional care for active functional folks. And growing up in this, I grew up in a very different environment, but when I got here, it was like, wow, people are over-the-top exercisers.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. There's dads and moms that are doing loaded jaw, and they're Olympic athletes. Unfortunately, in a very high-performing community with really high-performing people, they weren't lending parity to their emotional selves. Sure. And so as a parent raising my kids in this environment, I had to say, how do I raise my kids in this environment and let them know this is the top 1% of the world population? This is not normal. There isn't the diversity, there isn't the any kind of ethnic diversity, and it's so rich. And even though there's some there's a bit of a there's several socioeconomic groups within Park City.
Sure.
But it's so not the real world. And so as I lived here, it's like, wow, this is unbelievable. The amount of disconnect between.
Oh yeah, I've noticed it as soon as I moved here.
Yeah, and I didn't grow up as an athlete, and I'm like, wow, how do I reconcile that as a parent? So over time, it was just like, this is brilliant. This is a niche demographic, and what I call our demographic are the unidentified disenfranchised. And the unidentified disenfranchised are folks that appear to be doing well financially.
Sure.
I mean, look at this place. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I call it the land of beautiful people. It's like everybody's beautiful here.
Yeah.
Look at their dental care. The orthodontists in this town are making bank. Anyway, I really saw a need for a niche demographic, and because I've always worked with the weak and disenfranchised, that was not the weak or the heavy laden, the poor, but really everybody needs emotional support, and we need to lend parity to that it has nothing to do with money. We're all humans, and we all suffer from the human condition, and I saw a real loss of hope in a group of folks that, wow, there's so much hope. But how do you define success? What does success mean to you? You can't bring money with you when you leave this world, but you can be rich in relationships. And that's what I saw was really missing in this unidentified disenfranchised group.
And coming from where I came from, which is South Jersey, right outside of Philly, I've noticed a lot of the same things too quickly.
Yeah.
It was not, it was very eye-opening.
Yeah.
It's a different type of lifestyle, but there's a lot of need for this service.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, deeply. Like, sometimes people don't even ask themselves the questions.
Yeah.
Am I happy? Am I fulfilled? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how does this message now, how do you take it to the country? Because there are no, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are no franchised therapy type businesces, are there?
No.
There's a lot of schooling, a lot of different things, but
right.
I haven't seen anything like this.
No, this is definitely... And this is so me. It's like we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
Except within the context of our division of professional licensing. So all of our therapists are professionally trained therapists. We all have a code of ethics. We have to maintain our license, and we have to be nationally certified. So walking and talking with a professionally trained therapist. Many of us are life coaches. We do the same thing as the life coaches. We're mindfulness trained. But we're really professionally trained. So it's a unique model that way.
Sure.
And I did that and ensuring that we're evidence-based, that we have research behind it, that we're maintaining standards with HIPAA and stuff. Very challenging. At the same time, I had people say, well, what are you going to do what happens if you go out on the trail and someone has a personality disorder and they fall down and they pretend they broke their ankle? And I'm like, well, it hasn't happened yet, and until it does, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
But if I listened to the naysayers, I wouldn't be here. And the first time I walk and talk with my first dude, he's got his baby on his back because he was doing childcare at the time. His wife was working, and we're out walking, and I'm thinking in my head, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. What am I doing? Okay. And it's like, Allison, you know what you're doing. Just kind of do the same thing outside. And so I just kept practicing and practicing. And really, I just had to trust that this is okay. Nature, that bilateral movement outside, the use of the outdoors, there's a release of endorphins. It's not exercise. This is not exercise. There's no competition. Yeah. It's side by side, but that bilateral movement, being outside, there's a decrease in your emotional valence. I like that word, valence. Yeah. I like words. But emotional intensity. So with that change in hormonal, like little endorphin release, right? Just enough. And you've seen it just being out in the woods with your family members. Yeah. Like, God, what's up? I get some clarity. Decrease the emotional valence of a situation. Then you can put on your thinking cap and you have clarity.
Absolutely.
Aha.
Absolutely.
Because we really need to think and feel at the same time. Right? Yeah. And many of us are emoters, but if you make your decisions based on your emotions, you're going to make some bad decisions. Sure. You got to calm it down, put your thinking cap on, and then make decisions. So I've had to learn to do that myself. Before I left for Spain, I started this workbook called Trilogy of the Emotional Sherpa. So a friend gave me the idea of the name Trailogy, and so I said to him, "Can I trademark that?" And he said, "Sure." It's like, okay, you just released it, you know. And so I trademark emotional Sherpa. So an emotional Sherpa is someone that is heavy laden, and he carries everybody, tries to do everybody's journey for them.
Sure.
And wants to take care of the world, and then they all of a sudden it turns around that looks like they're trying to control everything. So anyway, the emotional Sherpa is something I use in my psychoeducation, and being a nurse, psychoeducation is about helping people understand why they're doing what they're doing, and,
right.
you know, and so that's part of my nursing gig. But the emotional Sherpa is just such a great metaphor for how we are so heavy laden with trying to save everybody else but ourselves.
Yeah, it fits.
Yeah.
Emotional Sherpa.
Yeah.
So you just trademark everything, huh?
Well, yeah. Well, so I tell you, I listen to people. And so I'm reading this book, and these two ladies out of New York are like, they're hot stuff. And they're obviously know what they're doing. And one was an attorney, and she kept saying back in 2010, make sure, grab a hold of your IP, get some IP. And I'm like, okay, IP, okay, that stands for intellectual property. You know, and then I didn't even know what a profit and loss, I didn't know what profit and loss meant.
Amazing.
I mean, I didn't know how to even evaluate what a bookkeeper did. And I couldn't read reports. And so over time, I've been talking about, we've got to be proficient in certain languages, law speak, accounting speak, client services speak, and there's 4 different areas where we have to have some literacy or proficiency of some sort, you know, in order to be a business person.
Has it been hard to get your other affiliates, your partners in the other areas to buy into your vision? Is it hard to find people to get your vision? And do you think that's going to be a problem as you want to roll this out more and more?
No, I think that nobody has a problem with the vision as long as they can trust the leader that I'm making good decisions.
Yeah.
But I'm creating a leadership team, and Megan's part of it, and all the other proof of concept trailheads there. Yeah. I'm forming this leadership team, and the challenge is everybody's a whippersnapper. Everybody's got ideas. Megan's got a different wheelhouse than I do, and we complement each other very well. And then we have other affiliates coming in, very different voices, very different styles, and so I'm definitely being challenged a lot. And it's great. It's sort of like having teenagers, and they will say, you say black, I say white. Explain to me why white's better than black. You know, so I'm continuing to grow in my own ability to manage. But man, I do get weary sometimes.
But you seem to have the same amount of excitement and passion as you did.
I know. What's that about?
Is it just growing? It seems like, because you hit one milestone, got your first company, first branch going, your affiliates, and it doesn't seem to be boring to you. You seem to still be engaged.
I tell you, if I'm passionate about something, I just can't. I mean, I have friends that I'll be on the ski lift with. I'm telling you, I marketed 3 times today, because there 3 times people came up to me and said, "Tell me about Trailtalk," and it's like, "Oh my gosh, let me tell you about Trailtalk." Like, I just love Trailtalk.
That's awesome.
And I call myself the sales, and I don't know what the microaggression or that's my kids are saying. You got to be careful with how you say things. Like, oh my gosh, I'm learning so much. I'm trying, but I call myself the salesperson for hope. I can sell hope big time. So that's awesome. Called placebo, right? So when you go see a therapist, what you want to know is, am I crazy? Am I going to be okay? Am I, and that's being a salesman for hope is like, yeah, you're going to be okay. You suffer from the human condition. I do too. I don't think you're crazy. I think you're going to have to, you fall in and out of mental wellness. And so when I switched the paradigm from saying, oh my gosh, you're mentally ill and you're heading to the crazy house. It's like that to me, that nomenclature, that verbiage is very scary. I feel better when, say if you get a virus, you get a virus, you got to go to the doctor. You might have to take medicine, but you're not terminally ill.
Right.
But you still need care. And that's the same thing. We fall in and out of mental wellness. Some weeks I'm on my game. I'm a human too. I suffer from the human condition. Some weeks I'm on my game and I'm feeling like I'm doing really well as a business owner, as a therapist. And other weeks I'm like, I get triggered. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? How did I ever think I was going to be able to do this? I'm incapable. I'm financially insecure. I start falling into my.
It's a roller coaster.
Oh, it is. And then I pull myself back. I practice what I preach. Yeah. All of the Trail Talk therapists, we have creating these systems. We have values and our culture. And one thing about our therapists is we've got to seek our own therapy. Yeah. We've got to practice our own self-care. And you've got to be really cognizant of taking care of yourself, because you can't take care of other people if you don't take care of yourself.
And that's, Megan and I talked a lot about that, because she was saying it took her a minute to find that balance to where she was doing self-care. And it's funny, the roller coaster is that's just business sometimes. Yeah. And it's funny, I think for the last few years, for most of our visits, she's helped me navigate through that roller coaster of business. And, 1 week we're growing, everything's great, and the next week I'm the worst, know?
Yeah.
And just trying to level that out. What piece of advice would you give to a young entrepreneur?
You got to really believe in your product. Like, I truly am passionate about sharing this. Yeah. And I think the piece that's easier for Trail Talk in our field is that we're all social activists. We really are. Megan, every single trailhead owner, Morgan, Chris, Tanner, all of our therapists really believe in helping other people with improving their quality of life. So there's a social cause. There's a social cause. It's like Tom's shoes, or you look at some of the people that's like, if you can find the pain. So again, these are all marketing things. Can you address the pain of it? Can you find a problem and address the client's pain? And I think in healthcare, emotional care has always been second place to physical care. We don't hesitate to seek out physical healthcare visits and taking care of our physical self. We aren't lending period to our emotional self. So I found that there was a need, and we've created a product to meet that need. So I'd say find something that really just you're passionate about, and that really meets the social need. There's so much going on right now in the world that it's like we can get involved with something that's just powerfully important, but you got to believe in it.
And when you can find that thing, it almost doesn't feel like work.
Yeah,
because you're so engulfed, you're so excited about what's happening that it's a pleasure to build. Yeah.
And I want to go back to being on a ski chair, because I'm ski lift. So I love to powder ski, I love to mountain bike. Trail Talk doesn't turn off. And I have a few friends that they have no problem. If I'm on a chairlift and you're talking to a guy and he's like, yeah, I'm a news reporter over in New York. It's like, oh, you are? Have you ever heard of Trail Talk? It's like, no, what's Trail Talk? Oh, it's a company in Park City that takes therapy off the couch onto the trail. They're using nature as their therapy office instead of the traditional. And so I'll start this conversation, and it's like I'm like constantly networking. Some of my friends are fine with it. Others are like, turn it off. And it's like, well, I'll turn it off when it pays my bills and I can retire.
Yeah.
But I'm close to retirement, and this is my retirement plan. So can't turn it off.
I'm really excited about the future of Trail Talk, as I know you are. You can sense the excitement. It just seems awesome. I can just see it.
It just makes sense.
Yeah, and you can see it everywhere. But the most important thing I'm excited, as much as I love business, is, and I shared this in my interview with Megan, what Trail Talk has done for me personally. Mm-hmm. I was very hesitant about getting back into therapy when I moved here. Just because of some of the things I had heard coming from the East Coast.
Yeah.
And I remember I saw, Walk and Talk on the trails, and I thought that actually could fit. Yeah. Not only is it an incredible business, but it works. And your therapists are phenomenal. I also know Tanner.
Oh, nice.
Tanner's done some work with my son.
Yeah.
So I don't know all of them, but It seems like you got the right brand, the right idea, the right time, and the right people.
Yeah.
So that's a formula to win in business.
And that's what you tell the young folks trying to start a business. Make sure you have the right people, the right timing. Yeah. But then again, it's you got to navigate through it. And sometimes the light bulb comes on at a certain time. It's like, oh, I get that. It took me forever to understand how to market a product that is in healthcare. Because I'd be talking to business people and they're selling freemiums or they're selling something. It's like, gosh, it just doesn't match.
Yeah, it doesn't feel
my industry.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to be really careful because this isn't hokey pokey stuff. This is true professional therapists.
Sure.
You know. So I have to really, and I've really straddled that where someone's like, you do this. It's like doesn't feel right as a nurse. I can't. I don't think so. So trusting yourself. But being open to listening to other people, but listen to your gut and be willing to fail, and because just get back up, you know. And that's where I've done a lot of. I told Megan, I said I've made all the mistakes. She might have said that. Yeah, Allison's made all the mistakes, and I'm benefiting from it. It's like now I want to share that. You make some mistakes, and we'll make. Now I have a team of people, and we can forge forward together.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to put we'll have a link to the site below for those of you who are listening, and it sounds like if you are a therapist and interested in getting involved, if this sounds like something you're like,
hey, buy into joining this family.
If you want to be part of this, you can reach out to Allison. We'll have the website on the link show notes. So thank you, Allison, for the time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening to me, and it's so much fun to talk with other small business owners because we are dreamers, and it's like, let's dream together, man.
I know, I'm listening to this story, I'm like, oh man,
let's do it. Let's head to the mountaintop.
Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this interview with Allison from Trailtalk. Again, thank you for checking us out. We'll see you on the next episode.